Are we? Yep. Hi, everyone. How's it going? Hi, Ben. Hi, Kate.
Yes,
Hi,
hi Chris.
hi
Hi.
Chris.
Hi. So I'm not sure. I think we've got a couple people joining us now. So for those of you just hopping on, we're here today to talk about the biggest issues in English language teaching. We're talking about all the latest trends, all the latest ideas, the things that matter the most to language teachers at the moment. Me, Ben, and Kate were at the IATEFL International Conference 2 weeks ago. And this is the biggest conference in English language teaching where people talk about all of the latest ideas, the most burning issues, the most important issues, the things that are changing the face of English language teaching. And we went to loads of talks, we heard loads of interesting opinions, and saw a lot of cool new things that people were talking about. So we thought we'd come here together today and talk about our reflections from the conference, but also really talk to all of you about what the biggest issues are in ELT today, what matters, what could you be looking into, what should you be looking into, and what might you find interesting. So yeah, that's what we're here for today. It'd be great to hear from all of you as well. If you have any thoughts about the latest issues in ELT, just let us know what they are. Pop in the comments, what do you think the most important trends in ELT are right now? So yeah, good to hear from all of you. We've already got some people in the comments. Hello, how are you all doing? But yeah, we're all joining from the Oxford office, and I'm joined today by Ben and Kate. And yeah, thank you both for joining.
Pleasure.
Thanks for
It's
having us.
great
Yeah.
pleasure.
It's great to talk about this.
So just to introduce ourselves, I guess, for those of you who've not seen us before, I'm Chris. I'm in the marketing team for our professional development, and I work on a lot of the professional development events like this, which you're all joining.
Mm.
Hi, I'm Ben, and I am responsible for looking at how we can apply research into learning and pedagogy to improve the design of our courses.
And I'm Kate. I'm pedagogy research manager and working with Ben on these issues, looking into what research we can apply to materials and how to make sure that all our materials are evidence-based.
Excellent. And it looks like we've actually got a lot of people in the room. We've got people from all over the world by the looks of things. So thank you all for joining. And yeah, we're going to jump in and start talking about some of the trends that we noticed at the IATEFL conference, some of the ideas, and the important issues in ELT at the moment. As we jump into that, just for everyone in the audience again, what do you think the most important trends in ELT are right now? We'd love to hear from you. Just type in the comments, let us know what's really big at the moment. What's a big issue for you, or what's a big issue for your school, or what do you think is a big issue for the world? Let us know. But while you're typing that, I think I'll put someone on the spot. So Ben,
Yeah.
when we were at IATEFL, what did you notice one of the big issues as? What's big in ELT at the moment?
Well, one of the interesting trends I thought at IATEFL was there was a lot of talk around how we're moving away from seeing the UK and the US as being the center of English. And people were talking about decentering of English, so that the question of who owns English was coming up. Is it British? Is it American? Is it around global Englishes? People talking about English from India, Pakistan, Malaysia, Hong Kong, or even just is it a tool that people use to communicate between different learners? And actually, there is no question of ownership. So that was really interesting. That was a really strong theme, and it also affected things like how much do we allow the use of the first language, the learner's language, in the classroom? Is it about immersing people in a single English environment, or is it actually much more mixed than that? That we're using English as we need to in a more kind of plurilingual world, and I think it also relates to, there were quite a few talks around intercultural skills. people were talking about how do we understand people from other cultures that we're talking to. And it felt like that was part of the same thing, that English is no longer just learning about one culture, one place, but it's about trying to understand people from all over the world. So that kind of global perspective, I thought was really strong at IATEFL.
I think that's really interesting. We've already had one comment which noted that a big issue for them is always pronunciation, teaching, and learning. And I think that idea of global pronunciation and pronouncing English in a way that makes you intelligible across the world rather than just focus on native speakerism, that was another big trend which we've talked about and which I noticed at IATEFL as well. So I think that's a really big one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a very kind of practical issue as well, because we can talk about, we focus on intelligibility, but it might be a bit difficult for teachers to actually know what it means, because, well, a lot of the books and the materials that we use and the dictionaries that we use, they tend to focus on the standard pronunciations. But if we talk about intelligibility, that really involves a shift in everything related to ELT. So it's a big issue which probably will remain relevant for a while.
I think so, definitely.
I mean, there is. Sorry, I know you want to move on to the next point, but there is this kind of tension between exams, which are very focused on a standard version of English, and the way that English is being used for communication in reality between people who will kind of negotiate the English, who just need it to be intelligible. So that was a recurring theme.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and the tension is also between, so the context in which people learn English can be quite different. So if English is learned as a medium of communication within a certain region, then obviously there are similarities in the accents, and you might want to be intelligible in that region. But if you want to go outside of that region, you want to be intelligible to anyone. That is a different set of objectives when you're learning English.
Absolutely.
That's such a good point. I mean, I noticed, there's a number of people coming from the Indian subcontinent, which I think, illustrates your point that if you're in the Indian subcontinent, there's a lot of intelligibility between people from different parts of different countries there. But that may not be the same level of intelligibility if you're then having to talk to people from a different part of the world. So it is quite difficult to pin that down. Yeah.
Absolutely. To move us on from the topic of sort of decentering English and international English, Kate, what came to you as one of the big issues?
I thought, so one of the issues that is sort of related to this actually was inclusivity. And I think inclusivity has become a much bigger term than it maybe used to be. It includes so many things, well, as the term suggests. But inclusivity in one sense is about including different cultures and allowing learners to express themselves, perhaps sometimes using their first language, and allowing them to keep their identity and not fostering this, assimilate with the culture, the English or the American or the Western culture, because that's why you're learning English, supposedly. So inclusivity in that sense is being culturally inclusive, and the teachers recognizing that there is a variety in the classroom, as in many contexts there is. And so in that sense, that can be about using different languages in the classroom, using different accents in the classroom, and also in the materials. So ensuring that the materials that people use represent different cultures, represent different accents, and not necessarily the standard British, American, Australian accents, but also accents that are not traditionally viewed as standard English. And on the so that's kind of one aspect of inclusivity that is related to what we have already been talking about. But then the other side of inclusivity is also including people with different learning abilities and different learning special education needs. So people of the whole range of neurodiverse backgrounds, including, I think, some of the main issues that teachers tend to ask about is, well, how do we teach to students who have ADHD? More and more, especially young people and teenagers and younger children these days are diagnosed with ADHD, and that is a challenge for classroom learning. So designing curriculum and designing materials and teaching your classes in a way that would suit students who have ADHD is something that everyone wants to learn more about. And yeah, so other examples could be dyslexia. So that has been discussed a lot as well. And now that we're talking more and more about online learning and digital, making sure that anything that's online and that's digital is also suitable for anyone with dyslexia or anyone with ADHD. That is another theme that I think, well, it sounded like everyone was interested in that and talking a lot about it.
I think that was something I noticed as well. That was a continual issue throughout the conference. I just want to hop in and say to anyone in the audience, if you have any questions about the things we're talking about, if you have any experience with them or any of these who stand out, do pop it in the comments, and we'll try and address that as well as all the things you're saying. And again, if you want to tell us what you think the most important issues in ELT are right now, hop that in the comments, and we'll get to your questions very shortly. I also
Chris,
want.
Sorry to interrupt you, Chris. I thought you would stop. I was just going to say there are a number of people who have made comments about trends around AI and ChatGPT.
I was going to mention these.
Okay, sorry. I was just going to say that it wasn't a strong theme really at IATEFL, because IATEFL is planned many months in advance. But I think it is clearly a topic that we should talk about now. Yeah, today.
Yes. Oh yeah. No, I was very much, that was in the back of my mind is, we need to talk about this. But yeah, the fact that the moment we said, what does everyone think the biggest issues are, 4 people immediately came out, as we've just seen with AI, and people are still mentioning it. Artificial intelligence in teaching English is a prevailing issue. And then we've just had the biggest issue is to be in harmony with technology such as ChatGPT or DeepL. I think this is a thing which is causing a lot of concern and uncertainty, but also a lot of inspiration. I think people are curious about how they can use it, but I think people are also a bit worried about it. But as you said, it wasn't a big issue at IATEFL, because I think one thing to know, I know a lot of teachers at the moment are thinking, okay, what does this mean for me? I think everyone is thinking that. I think that was a big theme at IATEFL, because I talked to a lot of people giving talks, and I asked them, what do you think? And their response was still, oh, well, we have to see, because it feels very unprecedented in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
It seems, however, that the initial kind of panic and the initial, perhaps for some, fascination with, oh, wow, it seems like AI might solve all of our problems. It has made giant leaps, and perhaps the English teaching is not going to be relevant anymore. Perhaps people are not going to have to learn languages at all. I think that has sort of settled down a bit, and now there's a bit more practical talk about, well, how do we actually use it, and what can we gain from it? How can we, like someone said in the comment, be in harmony? So how can we leverage the benefits, recognizing its limitations, because as it turns out, there are limitations in any case. So yeah, it seems like the conversation is becoming a bit more productive at this point.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think one of the things people felt at first was a lot of those questions that I set as assessment or homework, etc., actually can be done by AI. And so how do I set homework for my students? And so all the techniques that they use to evaluate their students' learning felt like they were under threat. But since then, a lot of people have come up with ideas about how to manage that kind of situation, how to make your assignments structured in a way that you can't just feed it through ChatGPT without contributing your own work.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And one of the nice things about IATEFL I found is because it's everyone's coming together from all over the world. There's loads of different teachers there, all with different experience and different ideas. And it was great just outside of the talks and conferences, going around, meeting a bunch of teachers and just talking to them and getting their thoughts. And on AI in particular, I had several interesting conversations with people talking about how they try to use it. So one person mentioned something which I just thought was really interesting. I really liked it as an approach, where they went to ChatGPT and they asked it to, as a teacher, to write an essay at a specific level. So they said, okay, well, I want an essay at B1 level or B2 level. And then they gave that to their students who were of the same level and asked them to then mark that essay. And just as a way as kind of an error spotting guide. And then they got the students to go away and do the same thing. And then to write another, so they got the students to go use ChatGPT, get it to generate an essay, and then write their own, paying attention to what it had got wrong. And I just thought that was a really interesting way of getting students to engage with this new program actively and use what would otherwise potentially be a source of cheating.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. There's lots of techniques where you can make use of it. Somebody made a comment that we always react like this when there's a new technical tool available. That's it, Fernando accused. And that's true because I'm old enough to remember when search engines, Google, were introduced, and there was a panic among teachers at the time, or concern. We don't have to teach anything because the students can just look it up on Google. Mm-hmm. Well, now we know that it doesn't work like that. Looking up Google is, one step towards learning something. You have to have a lot of more skills and knowledge.
One wonderful thing that I find that ChatGPT has brought up is that the skill, what we could call it a global skill of asking the right question, has really become very prominent, because if you don't know how to ask the right question, you won't get the nice essay that you're looking for in ChatGPT. So learning to ask questions is perhaps the thing that will become more important. And it is very important for learning. Finding the answers, we have the tools for that, but we just need to kind of know which questions to ask first.
That's really interesting.
Chris, there are lots of interesting questions coming through on the chat. Should we be picking those up?
Yes. I was looking through and I was thinking which ones to grab. I think there's someone talking about learner autonomy, which I think is really interesting.
Yeah.
I think I would I quite want to jump on this one because it's. So this is something I was interested in at IATEFL, and it's something we've been talking about a lot. I'm sure some people in the audience were at the live stream that I was on yesterday with Hayo and Nathan, where they talked about learner autonomy and self-regulated learning and the importance of whole school collaboration. But at IATEFL in particular, I went through sort of the whole conference book, and one of the most common topics and themes throughout the entire conference was learner autonomy or self-regulated learning or independent learning. There were loads of different talks about how we can get learners to take control of their own learning. So it feels like it's an increasingly popular topic that people are increasingly interested in. And I went to a couple different talks. One of the interesting things I found was everyone has a different idea about how to do this. Everyone has a different thought about the best way to encourage learner autonomy. One person was talking about collaborative approaches. Another person was talking about getting students involved in writing the assessment rubric for their own activities. And it was just really interesting seeing all these different thoughts, but also it kind of highlighted something for me, which Hayo and Nathan and the other experts talked about in the paper, which was the fact that one of the barriers to successful learner autonomy is the fact that all the teachers and the staff within a school or across different schools do have a different idea about what this means. everyone has a different thought about how the best way of approaching this is. And really, in order to successfully promote self-regulated learning, we need to come together and really make sure as educators we have the same perspective on this and we're taking a collaborative approach. So I think this is a really good point here, that collaborative approaches to self-regulated learning are really important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because sometimes people think that learner autonomy is something that learners should be able to do, but that's not something that comes naturally to anyone. You do need support with it initially, especially if this wasn't the kind of standard approach or expectation in the past.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the reasons why this has become important topic for people is because of the lockdown and remote learning, is that it revealed to a lot of teachers how bad their students were at managing their own learning. When they come into the class and the teachers kind of got good control over them and can see what they can do and can't do, it was easier to manage their learning. But in this remote learning situation, you realized actually they don't have the skills to motivate themselves, to do things, to break up the tasks, all the things you need to do.
Absolutely. I just want to jump in with a comment to the audience as well. We've got a homepage, we've got a web page which we put together for IATEFL, which we were sharing with everyone at the conference, and this kind of gathers together a lot of our thoughts and ideas and a lot of the resources we have about the different issues in ELT. So if you go to that website, you'll find links to all our professional development resources, to all of our different papers on topics like learner autonomy, self-regulated learning, assessment, pronunciation. A lot of the stuff we've talked about today, you'll find on that website. So yeah, if you want to find more about this, we'll pop the link in the comments, but just click on that to get some more information about all of this stuff. I'm going to take a look through the comments and see what else everyone has said and try and pull some stuff up. Did either of you have any more comments about sort of self-regulated learning, learner autonomy, or do we want to jump to one of the other things we noticed?
I think perhaps a related theme was motivation that has come up quite a lot. And I think that the reason I think it's related to self-regulated learning is that we increasingly find that actually the opportunity to self-regulate and to direct your own learning is motivating to students. If they have a choice and they take responsibility for their own learning, that can motivate them. And this is the kind of motivation that is actually quite intrinsic, that is coming from the personal interest to the learning and to the subject, rather than other ways of motivating, which we have heard a lot about during the pandemic. So gamification and all of these approaches are great, but they kind of motivate externally, the need to compete perhaps, or to play a game, win points. But being interested in the process of learning itself is very powerful, and that's something that learners, the opportunity to be independent, that is something that can give that motivation. But there's been lots of talk about motivation, especially in younger people, teenagers and children, or they're sometimes called the Generation Alpha, because of the increasing concern that they are different. They've had this very unique experience of spending quite a lot of time in lockdown and being much more on the digital platforms, being much more basically, online. And teachers who are from a different generation typically are not sure how to approach them and how to best engage them in the lesson. So I think motivation has been a very important theme, and not only motivation, but also engagement on task. So how do you keep learners engaged and interested in the task? Because sometimes people might be motivated generally to learn English, but not particularly into the specific task that they're doing. And so both of these are quite important.
Yeah, I think when you're saying online, but particularly social media. Social media on a phone, which is designed particularly to catch your attention, in a unending way, to keep
Yeah.
you engaged on the phone. It's designed purely to do that, because that is the economy of attention. So how do teachers compete with that? Billions are poured into distraction through a phone. How do you maintain engagement in a classroom? It's really challenging.
Absolutely. And I went to on the first day of the conference, there were 3 or 4 talks on things like micro learning, how to use using TikTok and TikTok videos. There was a lot of stuff on podcasts, a lot of stuff on teachers on social media, but also students on social media. There was also an interesting talk I went to about long form videos, and one of the presenters started talking about short form videos and using LTalk, and someone in the audience really had a go at them. They had a bit of an argument about whether things like TikTok were effective educational stuff. So I think it's an interesting one where it's something we clearly need to be engaging with, but is a bit controversial in some spaces. But at the same time is quite ever present. Like, it's definitely, last year there wasn't much about this, but I think this is something which clearly people are increasingly interested in and increasingly aware of it being something we kind of have to address.
Chris, I was going to pick up another question or a comment more from Catherine Billsborough about sustainability and its integration in.
I have that here. There we go.
There we go. And of course, I completely agree about the importance of this and integrating it into materials. But I was going to kind of link it to a number of themes, again, at IATEFL and outside, about the integration of global issues into English language teaching. It feels like this is another trend, that there are a number of people talking about global issues, global citizenship, responsibilities, and that kind of content, which is not language content primarily, but being integrated into what is a global skill, which is using English. And there were some fantastic talks. That I remember a brilliant one about from a Danish teacher talking about how they support the development of the language skills and the development of their understanding of concepts behind global issues in the same way together. And I was thinking, this is difficult. Language teachers have a real challenge now. They're not just having to teach vocabulary and grammar. They're having to teach really sometimes quite difficult concepts, and understanding how they break those down. So what does it mean for primary school, etc.? And this teacher had a lovely kind of lesson that they'd built. So talking about waste and really sustainability, but she brought it down to, what do you not eat in your lunchbox, and what do you do with the things that you leave? And a lovely story about a boy who was collecting up unused fruit and creating smoothies to then distribute back. So, working out how you take these key concepts and take them to the level of understanding of each stage of education, I think is really interesting.
I really like that, and I think it is one of those issues which is becoming increasingly important. I mean, I saw lots of talk about UN sustainability goals at the conference as well. So I think how to take topics like sustainability and all these global issues, and as you say, actually talk about them in the classroom. I just want to give a quick shout out to the audience as well, because we're getting loads of great questions, and I just want to put some of them up on the screen, flash them on the screen, so that we can just see some of them and we know what everyone's saying. We had a very early comment about the future of English. This was talked about a lot at the conference. I think the British Council were talking about a book they've launched on the future of English. I went to that talk. It was really interesting. They asked a bunch of questions about it. We have loads more here, though. We have someone's talking about confidence and mutual respect in the classroom, helping students communicate with joy. We've got someone talking about one of the issues learners encounter is being afraid to speak, especially adults in Latin America, and that's what they've noticed as an English teacher. We've got student well-being, which of course is always an issue, especially since the pandemic. And then there's a lot of comments about technology here. Someone's talking about promoting gamification in learning English. And then right afterwards, someone's talking about how to use, Fernando here is talking about how to incorporate e-tools in the teaching syllabus and how to train students to use e-tools in a more productive way. So all these topics like social media, AI, e-tools, all of this is clearly, technology as a whole is something which is quite current at the moment that everyone's very interested in. Someone else as well, Madeline, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Madeline has talked about motivation skills, and the procedure combined, and how to motivate learners, which I think is really interesting. So just to everyone who's watching, it'd be great to hear from you. What do you think the most important trends are in ELT? Keep your comments coming. And also, if you have specific questions about any of these issues, if you just have something in your classroom that's been really bothering you, or that you really want to know about, just pop it in the comments, ask us a question, and we might not know about it, but we'll try our best. So hopefully, so yeah, just let us know. And yeah, those are some of the really great thoughts.
Chris, what I was just going to comment on that some of those things are obviously new trends, but it also shows that some of the challenges we face have been the same for, probably for centuries. Haven't changed that much. So somebody mentioned mixed ability classes. I mean,
I saw the comment about that as well. Yeah,
that is one that's never going to go away. It's always.
Then with these new issues that we were talking about, I think the person asked whether we need to use L1 more in mixed ability classes, and I think with the new trends into being more acceptive of different cultures, and that British or American English is not necessarily the standard English. Like English belongs to everyone learning it and using it. That becomes slightly different. There's a new perspective on this, about using L1 in a mixed ability classroom. Because a mixed ability classroom is a mixed bag. It's a mixed ability not only in terms of English, but also the different cultures and the different perspectives that students have. So using L1 can actually be helpful, and I think that's the new-ish trend. I'm not saying it's new, because people have already talked about this, but it's becoming more prominent that the positive attitude towards using L1, the first language, if it achieves a goal, if it helps.
Can I just say that if anybody is interested in mixed ability, Kate did a fantastic talk at the last LTalk conference, and it's available on. You can find it on YouTube. And it really sets out the issues and ideas for managing mixed ability classes really well.
And I think if you just go on YouTube and search LTalk OUP, it'll come up and you'll find it on there. I think also as well, to follow up on that, I think we've covered a lot of this stuff at LTalk as well. The last LTalk had some stuff about technology mentioned. We've talked about mixed abilities, you said. We've talked about inclusion. So LTalk's a great space to find out about all this stuff. And I know the next conference we've got coming up in June will also talk about some of the issues we've talked about today. So go search for LTalk and keep your eye on that if you want more focused attention on any of these issues.
I was just going to add, I think that relating to the sustainability goals, and the fact that English teachers are now kind of expected almost to teach more than just English, sort of reflects this whole trend to decentering English, because it's kind of viewed now not as a language to talk to people from the US or from the UK, but as a tool to solve global issues, basically. So I think this shift in attitudes is reflected in the content of what we want to teach in English. Yeah. So we could talk about the double-decker buses and Hollywood, or we could talk about global issues and things that are relevant for everyone, and that we need to have a common language to talk about.
That's such a good point. And there was a really good talk at IATEFL about myths of finance that are perpetuated in ELT materials. I don't know if I can remember them all, but there were things like a lot of ELT materials kind of idolize entrepreneurs. Say this is the best thing to be. You can be a great entrepreneur and make lots of money, new business and all that. And the challenge was, well, that's not most people's reality. Most people's reality are are different types of jobs and environments which are not so exciting.
Well, I mean, I would say that it's also not for everyone. Not everyone is good or is willing to be an entrepreneur, and that other jobs have other benefits and can also be interesting in their own ways.
Yeah. So I think where I was going with that was also about it's great to be that they're all trying to be wealthy, and that everybody in the West is wealthy and everybody in the developing South is poor. Lots of kind of myths which are not obviously explicit, but sometimes materials are kind of reinforcing those kind of images. And that this comes back to this, I think what you touched on. If we just talk about celebrities, etc., are we talking about the things that really matter in life? Or can we make our communication lessons about things that matter?
Absolutely. I think that is really interesting. And I think I saw a lot of that conversation about real English as well and real examples. So no, absolutely.
Chris, I'm going to pick it. Sorry to keep interrupting, but I keep seeing really interesting interesting points.
Yeah, go for it. Which one?
People are making such interesting points, and a number of people have talked about critical thinking and creative thinking, and that ties in. I think someone said something. Yes, Natalia said too much inspiration from Google. It's obvious we're exposed to plenty of resources, and I think that's a really important point. And it comes back to the chat GPT, etc., that in terms of kind of basic information, that's going to be easier and easier to get from these tools. And that what really matters for our students, if we're trying to prepare them for the world ahead, is actually that critical thinking and also the creative thinking, because those are the human skills. AI is not human, it's artificial. And so the key thing, if we're trying to prepare our students for a future with AI in it, is what are the human skills that are important? And I think those are mainly critical thinking and creativity. So really, how do we incorporate AI? Think about human skills.
Yeah, and even creativity might need to be rethought a little, because definitely some of the things that AI can do these days conventionally could be thought of as creative. You might have heard that there was this scandal, well, not a scandal, but with the AI generated photo that won an international photography contest. So you might, it definitely will generate a conversation about what is creativity, because certainly some things AI can do that you would think are creative, but actually they are an algorithm.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't want to go off topic, but there was an amazing story of someone who was using AI technology for music composition. So the composer, and they use it and they train it to kind of fill in the music that they're composing. But he then trained it on Chopin's music, and Polish composer, and he got it to produce a piece of music, which he then played to a number of music specialists, both that and a very little known piece of music from Chopin. And he challenged them, can you spot which one is the rarely heard, unknown piece by Chopin, genuine, and which one is the AI created? And majority apparently got it wrong. And they said, well, obviously that one is AI created when it was actually the genuine one. And this one can't be AI because it's so nuanced and clever and beautiful. So you're right.
I know we have about 5 minutes left.
Okay.
So before we popped off, I mean, we could stretch to the 10 if we wanted to. Everyone seems really interested. So before I forget, one of the things I did want to mention that was really big at IATEFL. In fact, I think it was the most common talk. Like there were loads of talks on loads of topics, but the one I saw the most of was teacher development. There were some 30 talks on that, and they were all packed. Everyone was going to all of them, and they were all talking about, well, what's the best way to approach teacher development? How can we get the most out of our teacher development? And no one's mentioned it so far, which is interesting. But I think it is one of those issues which is continually more and more important as time goes on. And I think one of the core themes which kept coming up was this idea of teacher empowerment. And the importance of giving teachers choice, giving teachers that autonomy to decide what is right for them, giving them the control over both their teaching and their development. And I think that's what's great about events like this, where we can all come together and everyone can come and share their own opinion and follow the learning paths which matter most to them. Interestingly, one of the talks I went to, which was really fascinating, I'm trying to remember who it was by now. Anyway, it was talking about the latest trends in ELT, and it was talking about this idea that there are all these new trends, and how do we know which ones are the right ones to us? Which ones do we want to use in the classroom? And I just thought he had a really interesting point where the lens he took was very much, look, bring it back to your classroom. Bring it back to what are you doing in your classroom? What should you incorporate into that sphere? What can you incorporate into that sphere? Depending on your technology level, which pieces of technology can you use? Depending on what support you get from your management, does that mean that you can do self-regulated learning effectively, or do you need to get some additional support from them in order to do that? And it was very much taking this idea of, well, there are all these new ideas, there are all these new thoughts, there's loads of stuff which we're all concerned about, but really, what matters? What should we be thinking about? And it was all very much that angle of, well, what matters to you? What matters to your classroom? How can you take control of your learning journey and your learners' learning journey? Which I just thought was a really nice sentiment. And of course, we had several talks on the same topic as well. And we have a paper on this, self-directed professional development, which I will try and pop a link to in the comments. But yeah, I just thought that was a really interesting point, which I thought we could all take something from.
Yeah, I think so. And in fact, there is a link between self-directed professional development and self-regulated learning. The point that Kate made about intrinsic motivation, that we are more motivated to do things if we feel we have control over them. It's partly obviously relevance. It's more relevant to us, but just that sense of agency, of being in control, makes us more motivated. I want to quickly pick out, just because I really like it, Imane Bufadan's comment a bit around assessment, because it came up a little bit in IATEFL, and I picked those out. Sometimes I think people underestimate the significance of these kind of issues, because assessment has such a huge impact on what's taught. And so if there are weaknesses in the way that we're assessing people, it kind of it affects the effectiveness of our teaching. So yeah, I agree that I agree that there are issues around whether what's being tested in listening is actually what's most important, etc. So I was glad you picked that one up.
Yes, it's really important with all this talk about focusing on communication and intelligibility rather than the traditionally correct grammar and spelling and pronunciation or accent. But if we don't if in order to get to a job or a university, you have to take a test which tests grammar and pronunciation, and is not is not awarding you points for being intelligible and achieving a communicative goal, but instead is taking away points for making grammar mistakes, then it's a bit counterproductive. Oh, so it's very counterproductive, because as a teacher, we need to prepare students, well, both for life, but sometimes we need, in order to get into life, they need to take these exams. So
Yeah.
it is a big issue.
Absolutely. I think we're probably going to have to wrap up shortly. We're almost at the end. Just before we jump off, Ben and Kate, did you have any final comments which you really wanted to get to, or any final thoughts?
Well, I'm going to make a very trivial comment, which is because I think we've had a lot of really profound things, and it was just I was going to follow up on what Kate was just said about intelligibility in exams, because one of the examples I liked when I heard it was if you say if you're making an order at a cafe and you say I'll have 3 coffees, please, that's perfectly acceptable. But if you say, I'd like 3 wines, please, that's considered a mistake. But it's completely intelligible. Everybody understands what it means. And so
it does the job.
It does the job. You get the wine. You get the 3 glasses of wine.
Yeah.
But, there is some disconnect between the way that exams focus on standard English, even when it's completely intelligible.
And it's not a straightforward issue that there is a solution, we just haven't implemented it. It's really a discussion that's still ongoing.
So just to wrap us up before we sign off, because I think everything we've talked about today has been fascinating. I want to see where all of this goes. Like, there's so many big issues at the moment which were both visible at the IATEFL conference, but also here in the comments. Everyone is very enthusiastic and everyone has different ideas and is bringing in different thoughts, but there are some common themes. And before we signed off, I just wanted to show some of the comments we didn't manage to get to. We have some people talking about spelling and global spelling. We have more comments about AI. We have Fernando again has been talking about technology and the fact technology is always changing. We started with blackboards and we went on to whiteboards, and then we're now on to other areas. Someone has talked about new Englishes and introducing them into the course books. We have comments about sustainable development goals. And then more comments on self-regulated learning, on motivation. So I just want to say to everyone in the audience, thank you for giving us all your thoughts. It's been really great having you here, and really great hearing everything that you've been talking about. One thing I do want to say is we really want to make these sessions all about you, because you're our teaching community. You're all over the world, and we love basing this on what you need and what you're interested in. So if you want to talk in future on a particular topic, let us know in the comments. If any of these issues are issues which you really want us to talk more about, pop that in the comments as well, and we'll try and talk about that next time. So yeah, thank you again for joining us. It's been great having you. If you like this session today, make sure you like it. And if you love the session, make sure you love it. And please do share it as well. If you know any teachers that need this in their lives, then do tag them in the comments, because this really helps us out, and we really love making sure that we can get all of this content and all of this support out to as many people as possible. Also, if you want to see any of these future talks and you want to join the next one, make sure you're following us so you don't miss any of the sessions we've got coming up. I think we're at OUP ELT Global on Facebook, Twitter, and on YouTube. That's at OUP ELT Global. But last but not least, thank you, Ben and Kate, for joining us today. It's been really great having you, and it's been so much fun. And thanks again to everyone in the audience. You've been absolutely brilliant.
Well, thank you
very much. Yeah, thanks everyone.
I enjoyed it.
Yes.
Well, it was good. It was good.
Yeah.
So yes, hopefully we see you all next time, and I hope you all have a good afternoon.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.